And in lesson 4.5 here, we're going to take a look at labeling for your microgreens. So, when you are selling food to the public, it is a big responsibility, and it's really important to label your food appropriately. Food labeling is a pretty serious business. I think it's something that federal governments really keep an eye on, and it is regulated federally in the US and Canada, and probably in most countries across the world. So it's not something that you can just brush aside as a concern. We did talk about labeling earlier as a way of marketing a product, but it's also the way in which you convey product information to your customer. And that really is who you need to be thinking about here is the information you're supplying to your customer along with the product. So in Canada and the US, there are some great resources in terms of having checklists to make sure your label meets requirements. And so those documents and links to them are in the in Teachable following this lesson. So I won't go into details here about what is required, because that does shift a little bit. It changes over time within these countries, and there's too many things to consider depending on the type of product you're doing and how you're packaging it, especially if you're doing a mix, for example. So you'll want to use the checklist to go through that. But what I will do is go through a label that we use at the food peddlers to give you a sense of what's included in there and why it's included. Within a label, you've basically got what I would say required information and optional information. So let's start with required information. You need to have the product name. Your consumer needs to know what's in the product, so you're doing everybody a favor by having that there. You also need to have your company name and address on there. So in Canada, having a city and province along with a postal code is sufficient, but depending on how you want to present things, you may also want to have more information on there. For us, it was more just a space limitation than anything. You need to have the product weight. As a consumer, I know I use the product weight all the time to compare products, so I find it a very important piece of information. Microgreens and sprouts in Canada are required to have refrigeration, washing, and use by dates references on them. So because they're perishable, it must say that to refrigerate or to be kept refrigerated in some type of wording, that they need to be washed before use, and that they're best to use within 1 week. So that is a requirement. If you are certified organic, you're also going to want to put your certification information on there. So in this case, we have two things. We actually have our certification number with the certifier, and then in BC, we have a British Columbia certified organic symbol that people can use. And so it's basically a further marketing mechanism that we're using to highlight that another aspect of the product, which is important in that it's organic. What's lacking on this label, even though not required, is at the top it doesn't say organic sunflower shoots. But enough people recognize this label that that it's good to have it on there and sufficient for conveying that. So there's also optional detail on this label. The color, of course, is optional, but once again, that's really important for marketing. So product description. This is something we realized because even though we're very familiar with microgreens and their popularity is growing, to many people they're still very new, and so that just gives people a little bit of information to make some information about purchasing the product if they're not familiar with it. We've got some company information on our labels that hopefully is something that draws people in. It's the neighborhood we grow it in, it's the that we deliver it by bike, that we're a worker co-op, and we really like the since 2009 because we're showing longevity. I think with a lot of small scale companies, they come and go pretty quickly. So yeah, there was a sense of pride in that we've been around for a long time and wanted to keep that going. The UPC code is also optional, though this was strongly recommended, and probably by this point was required by one of our larger grocery customers. So you can buy UPC codes online, and they're easy to manage. And this is just another thing that makes it really, really easy for grocers to carry your product, to do pricing, and manage their stock on that. So Yeah, we included that on there. And you can see there's a lot of information on these labels, and so the design of the label becomes another thing. And it took a very, very long time to get to this point with different colors, layouts, fonts. It was a very, very, very long process. Another thing, and I don't know why I have this under the optional section, is your use-by date. So this isn't something you would put right on the label as a standard. You would add it to either the label or the as a sticker on the package somewhere afterwards. And this is something that's going to do two things. It's going to let people know when it was harvested or when it should be used by, and it's also going to act as a lot code. And what it's doing is, if you need to do a recall or you need to identify where a certain crop came from, that's what you're going to use. So we use our harvest date. We think the harvest date gives the consumer the best, the most information. If you give them a use-by date, they actually still don't know when it was harvested, whether it says best use within 1 week or not. So we use a harvest date, and that harvest date is what goes in our records, and that's how we track our product. And that way we don't have a separate lot code for products as well. So yes, so you want to add that. So it's optional in the sense that it doesn't need to appear on the label, but it does need to appear on your packaging somewhere, and we do it as a sticker on the bottom of the package. All right, so a few other things to consider with your labeling materials. You want something that's appropriate material-wise. We found a glossy finish just looked better and maintained itself better. If you're printing your own labels, you need to use a laser printer. And what you might see at the farmer's market once in a while is somebody's labels where the ink is running because they've used just like an inkjet or bubble jet printer or something. A laser printer won't run like that, and you need things to look good, especially if you're working in an environment where there's likely to be water. But ideally, you're getting them professionally printed, and you're printing them in bulk, because that's going to save you a lot of money. Your price really goes down as your volume goes up in terms of your per unit or per label price. And then you want to affix them to the packaging ahead of time. And so what I mean by that is you don't want to be like affixing labels and packaging at the same time. What we do is we have our orders for the week, and we put all our labels on the packages at the beginning of the week, and then we pack them, and we don't have to worry about the labels. Yeah, you don't want to be going between labels and handling product. You want to take care of that all at separate times. So that's a little bit of insight into food labeling and packaging. Overall, hopefully that was useful, and now we're going to move on to the next module.